Hello, everybody, and welcome to this in the latest of our series of podcasts brought to you by the team at Export to Japan. And on this podcast, we are delighted to dive into the world of logistics and talk a little bit more about the process of logistics and getting your product from the UK over to your Japanese customers. And to help us with this discussion, I'm delighted to introduce our special guest, David van Turton. Hi, David. Welcome to the Export to Japan podcast.
Hi, Steve. Great to be here.
Well,
Thanks
thank you.
for inviting me.
Oh, an absolute pleasure, and really good to have you on board. I've been looking forward to this discussion. And David represents a company called Cavelier Logistics, and they are actually one of the latest partners that we are delighted to welcome on board to the Export to Japan platform. And we've already started working with this great company, and it's proving fruitful for many of our users and members. And we're looking forward to doing more and more together with Cavalier in the future. So to get things kicked off, David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long have you been involved in the exporting logistics business, and also a little bit more about your experience with Japan, please?
Yeah, sure, Steve. I've been in this business for around about 25 years in the global logistics business. It's within the last 5 years is I took a post as the managing director for Cavalier Logistics. We're based in the west of London, just in the backdrop of Heathrow Airport, puts us in a very good position for air freight moves. And it's just really a company that we're part of a bigger US company, but we have grown from 2 people up to 15 people in the 4 years since I joined the company. It was very much a startup company in the UK. We do have a speciality. We speciality in time-critical shipments or biopharma shipments, which, as you know, with the current events, it's quite big business. And that is really where we are, what we're doing. We are growing at a great speed. But, to be able to come on air and speak to your audience about the challenges and logistics, especially in the time of this time of the year where there's a lot of transport, air freight, all modes have been affected severely.
I want to come on to those challenges in a second, because there's no doubt it's challenging times at the moment. So that's one of the topics I definitely want to come on to in a moment. I guess one of the first things that I do want to touch on with you and pick up on that you mentioned there is with the range of different products that UK companies are exporting to Japan. I know that your company has particular expertise in certain sectors, and I want to talk about that in a moment. But also, of course, we at Export to Japan are covering many different product areas. So I'd like to know, first of all, which areas do you specialize in? But also, once you've explained a bit more about that, are you able to also handle various other products that are not in that area of specialization?
Yeah, sure. So the key speciality with us is time-critical and biopharma shipments. The importance of these type of shipments is there's a high level of detail from the point of collection to the point of delivery, and there's no room for error, no room for delays, because at some stage it could either be medication for a sick patient, or it could also be a machine part for a down production line. Each in its own right would have a big impact if it didn't arrive on time. And regarding the other vertical of our business is general freight, but this huge general freight business from the UK to Japan, and we specialize in the general freight as well. So any of your viewers, any of the viewers, whether it's a small box of shoes or a large machine part, we can get in there. And that's what we have been doing now for the last 4 years. We like to think successfully because of the way the business has grown.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. Okay. So really, with the inquiries that we get in and with the members that we've got on the platform, really across the board, any inquiries for any particular product range, you're happy to handle those inquiries and talk to those companies. But obviously, particularly in the area where it's the time critical stuff in the sort of biopharma area, that's where you have the really strong expertise.
Yeah, yes, we would talk to any of your clients, and that with any of their export shipments to Japan. Okay, it's great if it's the biopharma or the time critical is our speciality. However, we do realise that there's a lot of businesses out there where, to us, their shipments might not be in our time critical category, but to them, it's so important because they need to deliver on their promise and they need to fulfil their orders. So we would be open for any conversation, any help we can give, any guidance we can give to your clients would be, we're available to do so.
Wonderful. All right. That's great to hear. Thank you. Now, one of the other parts I want to explore a little bit more, I remember when we first started the discussion between our two organizations, you mentioned that there was a couple of points that stood out to us of why you would be such a suitable partner on export to Japan. First of all, you have some form of relationship or partnership with one of the large Japanese conglomerates out there in the logistics side. And secondly, I also understand that you have a Japanese staff member based here in the UK to help your clients as well. So could you explain a little bit more about both of those points as well, please, David?
Yeah, sure, Steve. So going back a few years ago, we were contacted by a Japanese logistics company called Mitsubishi Logistics. We know this company, they're such a strong company, and they have a special healthcare division, they have a special automotive division, and they have a specialty company that deals with perishable products as well. And it's very simple, is because of our relationship. They said, look, we would need a reliable partner in the UK. And I said, well, we need a reliable partner in Japan. And it's want to make this a little bit more than that agent-to-agent network or the agent-to-agent partnership. I said, well, look, I also run a pharmaceutical logistics network. Why don't you come on board with that? Then I can introduce you to other members globally. Then it opens up your trade from your client base in Japan to the rest of the world. And then that allows me to go to my clients with confidence that I have a strong partner in Japan that really take care of the final mile, because that's where a lot of the problems start. We can get anything into any port in Japan. However, it's getting it out. The paperwork has got to be meticulously spot on. Smooth customs clearance is imperative. So that kind of started to work really well. And then they said, look, we have a really great person who, she lives in the UK, she's a Japanese national, and would there be a position inside your company and maybe to have a speciality to have that one person that could just deal with the UK, Japan, UK business, a native Japanese person. She's fluent in French and Spanish and German as well.
Oh, gosh.
Come on, bring it here now. And that's how the relationship started. And then we created about 2.5 years ago, a role for a Japanese logistics manager. And from that point, we've just gone from strength to strength because we've been almost able to pre-clear the document, double-check any documents on the UK side that are going to Japan. Obviously, the time difference is huge. The language barrier can be huge, but it's allowed then my person who deals with the Japan desk, her name is Mawako. She's a great lady. Is she can speak to the UK side, put the customers at ease. Then she can speak to the Japanese side to say, look, this shipment is coming your way. And then it's been a smooth transition. And what we have seen, Steve, and I'm sorry I'll close on this, but what we have seen is a rise in business. We've seen a rise in business of people. We have a shoe manufacturer in the UK, and their shoes are bespoke And listen, we were having problems with the customs clearance in Japan. We were getting these shoes stuck. I said, why? They said, well, we didn't kind of have the correct description on the paperwork, and the paperwork was in Japanese, and
Right.
and that's where Mawako.
I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine the benefit of having that native Japanese speaker on board to help with situations like that. And we all know, you know, when everything runs smoothly and everything goes according to plan, then things do go smoothly, and you know, it's all wonderful and you know, really good. But life is not like that, right? There's always challenges that come along, problems, obstacles, things we haven't foreseen. And I could imagine in your world of logistics that those kind of things can crop up all the time. And having that Japanese national on board and that native Japanese speaker must be so beneficial to help through those processes. So that to me is a real plus point for your organization based here.
And see, just to chip in on the end of that, look, what is my job as an MD of a company? I tend to be a problem solver. And if we can find a solution to these kind of problems, and the problem is UK customers getting their shipments caught in the port in Japan, cannot make the final delivery, cannot make their deadline, then it causes a lot of phone calls, a lot of, almost like reactionary rather than a proactive approach. And that's not good for anyone's business. And, you know yourself, is that it's not just a shoemaker in Northampton that is wanting a piece of the Japanese market. There's probably a shoemaker in Antwerp, and there's probably a shoemaker in, I don't know, Vienna. So if we can help the UK companies gain that traction, and their buyers in Japan are going to say, hey, we're going to keep using you guys. Of course. We love your product. And guess what? Your delivery is great.
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Okay. On a practical level then, so your colleague, Miwako, I think you mentioned, she's based at your UK office, and is she the point of contact and the interface? So if any of our members do want to reach out to you and get some help and have a discussion about how you can help them with their logistics, it would be Miwako would be the first point of contact with it.
Sure, yeah, and we've supplied Miwako's details, and what would happen is Miwako would be the first port of contact, because she can have a look at any inquiry. Depending on the nature of the inquiry, we would then bring in specialist teams, or just to say, hey, this is quite a big export piece. This looks like it's going to have to go by ocean. So then Miwako would be involved with our ocean freight manager, or it could could actually be an air freight. Then when we start to look at what mode of transport, what documentation. So really, it's quite a simple process, in that the first inquiry is dealt with by Miwako, and then Miwako will see it through until it actually converts into a live shipment. But sometimes, Steve, it doesn't convert into a live shipment, because guess what? We give a bit of knowledge, and that's what we do, because that's the business we're in. And sometimes it happens, or sometimes it doesn't. But either way, we're here to help.
Brilliant. No, that's great news, and that's what we need to hear for our members and the users of our platform. So that's really good to hear. Okay, well, that's really clear. And obviously, for those listening into the podcast right now, we will be sharing the contact details either at the end of the podcast or on the relevant page at Export to Japan, so that we can, if you want to reach out to Miwako, we'll make sure those contact details are there.
Okay, great.
Okay, I want to move on a little bit now to talk about the bigger picture of trade between the UK and Japan. And I'm sure you're well aware, David, around about the middle of September, there was this amazing announcement from the UK government about the trade agreement that had been signed, the CEPA trade agreement. Do you have any comment or any thoughts on that, or has it had any impact on your business at all, on how things are?
Well, we're very aware of what the Liz Truss is doing at the moment, and we do know about this agreement. And as far as we're concerned, it's just a great thing to be able to have this trade agreement which is going to make processes smoother. And that's really what my role as a company is, to facilitate these type of agreements, to ensure that we are the support network to ensure that these agreements are brought to fruition and the best benefit can be brought from it. So I am aware, Steve, it's a great initiative, and only good will come from it.
I think so too, yeah. And I echo your thoughts on that. I mean, we're certainly finding that at Export to Japan too. The amount of inquiries has gone up from UK companies, and the interest in the Japanese market has gone up. So that can only be good for all of us involved in this exciting mission, and for the UK economy and UK exporters in general. So yeah, I think it's great news that we have that agreement in place.
What I can say, and by looking at the shipments that my company handles, where it's okay, we have time critical and we have the biopharma side of the business. But you know what I find is it's these sort of unique British items that seems to be they love in Japan. It's whether it's a beautiful woolen sweater to a super fashionable pair of shoes. To believe it or not, even Scottish shortbread biscuits, and it never ceases to amaze me what Japan, a country of I think it's around about 105 million people, how much they love British goods, and it's only a great thing, because one thing the British we do well as a company, we are very kind of bespoke in our British goods that we can we all like a shortbread biscuit in our coffee, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think they do in Japan as well.
Yeah. Well, no, it's so good to hear that, and obviously you're at the sharp end of being involved in shipping those goods over there. So to sort of get your endorsement on that is great news, and obviously very encouraging, particularly for those UK exporters that maybe haven't considered exporting their products to Japan yet, and they're thinking about it, maybe inspired by this trade agreement that's just been signed, and to hear you endorsing the opportunities that other companies are obviously finding in the UK. That's really great to hear. So thank you for that. Okay, I wanted to dive in a little bit now into just some of the detail of the process of logistics. Now, on this podcast, obviously, we can't go right down into drilling into the step-by-step. I mean, that's for people to talk to you individually, case by case, if they want your help and want the conversation. But the one question I just wanted to ask you and pick your brains on a little bit is there anything in general you would say when a company is going through the process of exporting and getting their products over to Japan, is there anything unique about the Japanese process, or anything in particular you would bring to their attention that could be different to shipping their products to the US or anywhere else? Any comment or observation on that, David?
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally all countries, well, the majority of countries have similar importation regulations. Japan isn't any different, but there is a high level of detail on any documentation. The documentation has to be, 100% spot on correct. Otherwise, it can cause delays. New documents have to be sent. One thing also with the Japanese market is they like original documents. So if there's a shipment delayed because of a snag in a document, then it usually means original documents has to be sent by express, FedEx, DHL, something like that, to the Japanese side. That can cause delays. Once there's delays, you're normally paying storage at any port of entry after 24 hours. And the storage rate can increases on the weight of the product. You got a heavy shipment, of 1,000 kilos, and there's a 1 week delay, then, I haven't got the exact amount of the demurrage fees or the storage fees, but it would probably be around about something like 5,000, up to £5,000, or maybe a little bit more. And and that would have to be paid by the shipper. No one else is going to pay that.
Yeah.
And I think the key need for success is finding a reliable partner, logistics partner in Japan that can assist you with your customs clearance. There has to be a link between the seller, the freight forwarder in the UK side, then the freight forwarder who does the customs clearance on the Japan side, and then the final mile. So first mile, final mile are super important. So just you've got to get good contacts. You've got to build good relationships, and it was a lot easier before the COVID outbreak. That you do have to, as I was saying, sometimes you have to get your feet a bit dirty, and you have to jump on an aeroplane, and you have to go to these countries, and you have to just go and check out your partners in these countries, because anyone can have a great website, and anyone can have anyone can look good, but sometimes you need to get out and kick the stones around a little bit, and just to see what you are dealing with, and get somebody, a local, an interpreter, get somebody that knows the business, because, and I've fallen foul of this in other countries, is that you can be shown a great process and you can be shown everything works fine, and then you move your first shipment and there's a big problem. So you really need to get your logistics ironed out, watertight. I can help you. Yeah. My partners in Japan can help you, but ultimately the seller and the buyer, they have to they make their own decisions on who they're going to use.
Understood. No, that sounds like really wise advice. And I could imagine for companies that don't have that process in place correctly, the headaches that could come up must be colossal and expensive. So I think it's wise work you say there. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to jump back now. During your wonderful introduction, when I first asked you to tell us a bit about your background, you mentioned that your company, you made it clear that you can cover all aspects of different products. And you're open to discussions from any company that has any different sort of product or item that they're interested in exporting. But you also said that you do specialize in the biopharma and healthcare logistics side. Now, I'm aware that that's a huge trade between the UK and Japan. I know in that sector, I know we have a lot of UK companies exporting product to Japan, and a big proportion of our database of members are from that sector. So I want to just have the opportunity to understand a bit more about your capability and your experience in that. What is it in that particular sector that where you've got the expertise? Could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so a long time ago, when I entered into this, my first look at the biopharma market was around about 2004 when I worked for a company, and the company was very good at moving time critical and anything specialized, and this included pharmaceuticals. At that time, the regulations were not so scrutinous, and it's only in the last 10 years as there's been a whole big thing about good distribution practice. Any logistics company that's moving any medicine, the most important person in this supply chain is the end user, because it's a medical product. You've got to be able to validate the transport lane, that the goods have been kept at temperature, because as you can imagine, a vaccine that, well, to be honest, Steve, I know this is a chat is something I feel very kind of passionate about, is the World Health Organization destroys something like 40% of all medicines it gets because it's either reached its destination in an unfit condition. So if we're looking at exporting any medicine from UK or anywhere from point A to point B, we need to know the temperature requirements. Then we use specialized packaging. We use a data logger to record the transit data. And this product will not be released by QA when it gets to its hospital, it's wherever it's going to, until everything's been checked and it's fit for purpose. Now, this is something that we specialise in, and what we find in the UK, because of the time zone we're in, we have such high standards. You would have heard on the news regarding with the Pfizer vaccine, the MHRA, that is the Medicines and Health Regulatory Authority. They have my company has a license with them to store and hold and distribute pharmaceuticals, not to purchase, but just to be part of that supply chain. And they have the similar body in Japan, which has really the same set of rules and regulations. And going back to Mitsubishi Logistics, they also have a license from the Japanese health agency. So between that, we then feel that we are fully compliant and, if you like, in a legal sense and a compliance sense, to move medicines from UK to Japan in the correct temperature conditions to ensure that it uses the end user patient in, fully, pristine condition. It's a big, big risk when you're dealing with, say, cancer medication that is, you can have a small box that could hold 12 litres of product. And that 12 litres could be worth, £200,000. Then we have to look at the insurance. Then we can only ever get insurance if we validated the transit lane. We have another strong partner, a Japanese airline, who also works in partnership with us. So between the UK and Japan, we'd like to think we've got such a watertight supply chain that, once again, we can go to our customers or the pharmaceutical companies in the UK and Japan and go, look, this is what we are experts at. We can be trusted. There's the proof of the pudding. And then we enter into a kind of, a discussion. And Steve, I will just say this, is that this is something that you just can't just have a go at. Drug companies, we saw the same with PPE equipment. I didn't really get involved in that, but it's the same again. Everybody's trying to, there's no get rich quick. And even when we look at vaccines and medication, you've really got to have done your groundwork and know your stuff. And just to go back onto Mwako's role, Mwako, my Japanese logistics manager, I've spent 2 years really working to educate her and train her to a pharmaceutical level as well, because that's another part of what she does, is that she has, she gets fully involved in the pharmaceutical side of the logistics sector as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I'm sorry to elaborate a bit.
It does. No.
It's very passionate for me.
We can see your passion, and it's clearly where you've got particular expertise and a lot of time invested in that. So no, you've answered it very comprehensively, and there's no doubt, I think, for any UK company working in that sector that needs to get their products to Japan, there's no doubt that you will be able to help them very comprehensively. So that comes across.
Sure, yeah.
But what I do want to pick up on, there was one little point you mentioned there, just taking the discussion forward a little further. You mentioned airlines, and obviously that's one of the ways that you ship stuff over. But I guess by sea as well is another way of doing it.
Yeah.
Just very generally, what sort of time spans are we talking about to get product into Japan? And the second part of the question is the current situation with the pandemic and what it means to travel and airlines and things like that. Has that had any impact in the current market on timescales?
So if I can address or answer the first part, is ocean freight is very different to air freight, in the fact that obviously it's slower, it's a different mode, but there is a lot more, I would say, bureaucracy with ocean freight. Transit time can usually be around about from the UK to, say, Osaka, would be 28 days, 28, 30 days. You still need to have a couple of days either side, because they still have to build or put the product in the shipping containers. and then you really need to make sure that when the product gets to Japan, everything's, can be released quickly. But it's sea freight. There's no fast way. But if your clients had, some shipments said, look, it can take 2 months. It's fine because they're building up this supply chain of every 2 months. They can fill a container. They come in either 40-foot or 20-foot containers. These containers can actually be delivered to their warehouse for loading, locked, sealed, and then they're on their way. And you don't normally hear anything for, a good month. And then you start then trying to just make sure everything's in order for the release. So it's quite a simple process and something that we can help with. And the second part of your question regarding the travel restrictions is it's affected everybody. If there's no airplanes or the capacity of the airplanes has been cut, I think it's been cut, dramatically. Airlines rely on passengers so they can keep these routes open, and then they rely on freight to fill out the aircraft that the passenger bags can't the capacity there. What we found is that so the routes were cut with the air freight. That pushed a lot of things onto the ocean. The ocean now has got huge backlogs. It tends to be more coming into the UK than going out of the UK. And the supply chain has been affected so much, it makes us realize as a country of the imports that we have, especially from, the East. And so that is really, it's almost like planning in advance. If you've got an urgent shipment, guess what? You're probably going to pay 4 times the rate that you were paying, pre-COVID. If it's not so urgent, we've got to look at other modes. Maybe you can put it into a container, go by ocean. The key thing is now, it's use your kind of thought process where, with anything that you're exporting or producing for export, it's the same as how were we when we all took it for granted that there'd be a kitchen towel in the supermarket, and then we got down there and there wasn't any there. And so it's the same philosophy, is planning is in advance. And I know you probably come onto the Brexit scenario as well, but before COVID, we had Brexit, and now we've got Brexit back. And these have been challenging times for the logistics sector to be able to adapt to the new life or the new world, and really to be able to make those informed choices to pass on to our client base or the exporters to say, this is what you should be doing now. I think the UK government's website has been great. I think it's been really helpful. And we often direct people to that, especially when the Brexit question comes up. But you can't beat just sitting down and explaining to people that, hey, look, you have got to plan ahead here, because if you want to get that on a vessel tomorrow, it's not going to happen.
That message is very, very clear, David, and is obviously a really important one, particularly with the more time-critical products.
Yes.
But I think, to be honest, I'm aware of the time, and we're sort of coming towards the conclusion, but we've absolutely covered all the topics I wanted to cover with you. And I think the biggest takeaway for me from this discussion, as you've gone through all the amazing answers and sort of educated us on all the points that we wanted to know about, the biggest takeaway really is that there's no doubt that you and your organization have got the expertise to help people. Whatever particular question they may have and whatever help they want, it's very clear that you've got the years of experience to do it, and the partner network on the Japanese side with your partnership with Mitsubishi, and having Miwako-san, your Japanese colleague, working here in the UK. That to me ticks all the boxes of one of the reasons why you make such a suitable partner for us and our members and the users of our platform. And That's come across really strongly. So, you know, in conclusion, I'll come on to sort of showing our appreciation in a moment, David, but I would just say a quick message to our members that are listening into this right now. I would certainly say whether you already have a logistics partner out there and it's working well, or whether you are one of the new entrants coming to the market and thinking about Japan for the first time, maybe inspired by the agreement that's been put in place. If you've got any questions at all about the whole process of logistics and getting your product out there, it's very clear that we've got David and his team on board now as our trusted partner. And feel free to reach out to David or Miwako with your questions. And yeah, and I think just in conclusion, David, I would just like to really thank you not only for coming on board and working with us, but also for your time today and your very comprehensive answers. And delighted to have you with us, and certainly looking forward to working more with you in the future as we move forward together.
And thanks, Steve. It's been a pleasure to come on air, just to have a chat with you and to be open and honest about the challenges that we're facing. But it's not challenges. That's kind of, there is challenges, but it's the opportunities. And there's a lot of opportunities now that with the right help and the right support, they can be limitless. I think it's a great country, Japan. I think there's some great opportunities there. And all I would say is to any business in the UK, no matter how small you are, you will grow. And no matter how small the question is, we can help you. So just get in touch. And look, you know, it doesn't cost anything to, you know, 2 lines on an email or a quick phone call, but we'll always try and help. And we just think this is a great initiative. And thank you very much, Steve.
David, an absolute pleasure. And thank you. I think that's a lovely summary and a great place to leave it. So thank you for your time. And
No
thank you to everybody listening into this podcast today. Okay. Thank you and enjoy your day. Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.